Hello and welcome to the session on earthquake disaster preparedness through public engagement. My name is Elizabeth Pethio. I'm based in Bangkok, Thailand for Miyamoto International. And today my colleagues at Miyamoto International, in partnership with distinguished Professor Meguro at the University of Tokyo, a leading hub of innovation around disaster risk reduction and management, will be your guide in this interactive session using realistic disaster scenarios and a new tool to personally visualize, plan, prepare, and support stakeholders in disaster preparedness. I also want to give special thanks to RTI, who has made significant contributions to this work through the facility guide and other key tools. RTI is also leading on a World Bank financed resilience program in Bangladesh, where this methodology is being used. So we have colleagues from RTI on the call, and I want to give special thanks. So the session objectives are twofold. One is to showcase this new tool as a means to engage a variety of stakeholders from the community level to the national level. The second is to really emphasize the importance of personalization in disaster management. As you will hear over and over again today, if you cannot imagine it, you cannot prepare for it. There is a variety of risk data and risk scenarios that can be presented, but none as personal as this methodology. And that's important because people are at the heart of what we do, and they are the actors with the agency to make critical decisions to support preparedness and recovery, particularly if an earthquake or other disaster has not occurred recently in their environment. This imagination exercise helps them think through these scenarios in a really realistic and practical way. The agenda for today will include high-level framing remarks, as well as a description of the breakout activity. This is a small group activity, and then we'll return to the large group activity, debrief, and then closing. So before I invite our CEO, Dr. Kit Miyamoto, to share his remarks, I want to mention a few housekeeping notes. First, please mute yourself if you're not speaking. Second, we just want to remind you that this session will be recorded. If any questions come up during the process, please feel free to write them in the chat. Also in the chat, I would invite you now to write your name, your organization, and your email so that we can connect after this session, and you can connect to others in this session as well. So go ahead and do write your name, organization, and email in the chat. I also just want to preview that for the breakout session, the facilitators will be asking for one volunteer to perform the exercise. So just want to give you some advance notice that because this is about you and the personal nature of this work, where you are, where you live, and who you would be surrounded by when a disaster happens, the questions will be personal in nature. So those of you who volunteer, just be ready for that. So with that, I invite our CEO, Dr. Kit Miyamoto, world-leading expert in disaster resilient engineering, disaster response, and reconstruction, for his remarks. Over to you.
Thanks so much, Elizabeth. I like this kind of August title there. Anyway, next 5 minutes, I want to talk about the what is the earthquake impact look like. Next slide, please. This is a picture I took back in Haiti, 2010. It's magnitude 7. This event killed almost 315,000 people. That's one of the biggest tragedy in actually human history caused by the earthquake, and also destroyed about 200,000 buildings. It's a complete surprise to them because the last earthquake was almost more than 100 years ago in Port-au-Prince. Next slide, please. So right after that, we actually assessed the whole town of the Port-au-Prince, what's it look like. Essentially, out about 430,000 buildings, about half of it is damaged. And about 20% is a red tag, which means either collapsed or heavily damaged. You can't do anything about it much. And a yellow tag, which is can be repaired. So this is something completely unexpected. And Haiti always being, it's actually their hurricane responses are always actually fairly good because the reasons they experience a hurricane every 5 years, but earthquake, something just people don't experience it so often, right? So once that happens, it's such a tragic event. Next slide, please. And it's almost caused 1.2 million people in the homeless. That's such a tragic part of it. Next slide. So it's, everything changes, after earthquake happened. Even place like New Zealand, where the advanced engineering and a very qualified code and engineers and contractors, they built this city over Christchurch. It's about 400,000 people live there back in 2011. And it's a March, an earthquake happened, magnitude 6.2. Next slides. This look like this. Now, out of 400,000 people, they lost about 180 people, and it belonged to about 2 older buildings. So in a sense, building code, believe it or not, it did their job, which means saving lives. A building code is not really meant to be saving building or city. So that's what outcome of it. And let me show you why. Next slide. You see a little tilt. The reason is the next slides. 3 columns got the ruptured. Next slide, please. You see, it looked like that. So if the building looked like this, it's just mission impossible to repair or strengthen anything like that. So this was a total loss. They have taken the whole building down. No one died, but just building is gone. So that's the kind of lessons that we should kind of see from this. Even place like California or even Japan, so certain cases, you're going to see a similar effect where the building codes do save lives, but does not save the actual functionality of a city. Next slide. Ecuador, 2016. Also, this is a picture we took. Magnitude 7.8 destroyed the. This is the city of Puerto Viejo. It's a downtown area is completely actually destroyed. I would say probably up to about 50% is either red tag or yellow tag, even a little higher. And the problem of that is, you see this mid-rise building like that, it destroyed like that, right? It's almost mission impossible to go close by to it. So you have to shut down a whole district of this thing. That makes a huge impact for recovery process. Next slide. Next slide. Yep. So this used to be, by the way, a 4-story building. Ground floor is completely crashed and down to it. This is what we call soft story building, made of concrete, and built prior to 1980s. It's pretty much globally speaking, anything built prior to, say, early 1990s or 1980s, before that, the technology is not really good at all. That is true for every country we go through. It just doesn't have a good detailings per se in concrete. So that's why it's ruptures like that. It's so dangerous. Next slide. And this is also from the particular area. There's a lot of non-structural damages. No, next slide. So structure may not be collapsed, but also the lot of damage. This is Nepal. After actually, by the way, 5 years, still building stands like this. No one can occupy it because of such a huge damage. Non-structural damage. Next slide. Next slide, please. Indonesia, this is a new construction. It's a 3-story school. Now become 2-story after -7.5. You see, so earthquake happens completely unexpected places, by the way, and a completely unexpected disaster happens. Even places like, say, Kobe, Japan, we had an earthquake at 1995, right? And it's just something unexpected. So that's at the whole key points there. Next slide. It doesn't mean that they're hopeless. This is a older concrete structure in California. Next slides. We put shock absorbing devices. Shock absorbing devices, essentially shock absorber in a car. So there's technology like that does exist. And it's not only for the advanced countries like California, but also Haiti, there are several of those. In Nepal, in Kathmandu, there's a new construction built with this technique. Next slides. This is a picture we took from Haiti. And it was amazing, actually. It had a great detailing and all that. The part of a reason is such a huge reconstruction and the capacity building happened in Haiti in 2010, 11, 12, 13. It really impacted how the Mason works, even the informal housing area. Actually, Sabine's team is right now doing research to see how actually the Masons' capacity look like. Right now, findings are really good. About 80, 90% time, they have a 100% compliance in many of important details, which is actually a very important part of it. Next slide. So that's about it for me. So the earthquake impact is unexpected always and unexpected results.
Thank you so much, Kit. Excellent, excellent framing of the high-level overview on the disaster risk reduction side. Now, we're going to play a short video featuring Professor Meguro from the University of Tokyo, framing the disaster imagination activity and its importance. I would want to let you know that the sound may be stronger if you have earbuds or headphones that you can put on to participate. We would invite you to do that. Otherwise, I turn it over to my colleagues to start the video. Thank you.
I am Kimiro Meguro. It is my pleasure and very honor to have this opportunity to introduce the disaster imagination. This is a quite important graph showing the total disaster countermeasure, disaster management system. There are three disaster countermeasures. We call this is pre-disaster countermeasures, starting from damage mitigation. This is composed of two. One is structural mitigation, and the other one is land use management mitigation. Structural mitigation means we can increase the seismic capacity in case of the earthquake disaster, or in case of flood, we can increase the height of the dike. These are called structural mitigation. And land use management mitigation is if you know this area is a dangerous area, the authorities should not give the permission to the people to live in a high potential disaster area. The second one is preparedness. Prepare something before the hazard attack, then we can reduce the affected area, or we can reduce the velocity of the negative impact propagation. The next one is predict and give the early warning. Earthquake prediction is quite difficult, but how about typhoons, cyclone, hurricane, tsunami? This is important. Just after the hazard attack, what we should do first is damage or impact assessment. Where and what amount of damage occur. And based on assessment result, next what we should do is disaster response. Sometimes we put emergency at the top. There are three purposes in the category of disaster response. First, rescue the people. Second, to prevent the secondary damage. The third, to recover quickly the important functions. But this does not include the recovery of the affected area. Therefore, recovery and build back better should follow. To implement the proper disaster countermeasures, there are three essential conditions. The first one is to know the enemy. As an enemy, we should consider two kinds of enemies. One is accurate knowledge of hazard, that is input, and disaster, that is output, based on natural and social sciences. And second one is to know yourself. There are three. First one is to understand disaster. As I already explained you, regional characteristics is quite important. Therefore, the first one is regional characteristics of the target area. And the second one is ability of national and local governments. Government, they of course want to do to help the people, but because of the limitation of the time and resources, it is impossible to do all. And the last one is the citizen, their own capacity. If they do not know, they do not know what they can do, and ask many things to the government. And the third one is disaster imagination. Disaster imagination means considering the regional characteristics and the condition of the occurrence of the hazards. And since the occurrence of the hazard, as time goes, what really happens around you? For us, human beings, it is impossible to prepare well or to respond well for an unimaginable situation. First, we should think about our own safety, life. The second, family. The third, friends, the relatives. And then four. Even you prepare the number 4 good preparation, if 1, 2, 3 are poor, you cannot use well the number 4, preparation. Why? The imagination is important. If you are the engineer, the bad construction technology, bad maintenance, bad quality control, then structure will be collapsed and it will injure and kill many people. If the timing is bad, the victim will be yourself or your family member. If you are the politician or government official, and if you did inappropriate pre-disaster countermeasures and or post-disaster countermeasures, it means bad policy, bad legal system, bad regulations, then what happens? The damage, human and economical damage, becomes, of course, large. Please understand that emergency response, such as search and rescue operation and emergency supply, are not the major part of disaster management. It is quite difficult to save people by SAR operation activities, especially by the teams from foreign countries. Pre-disaster countermeasures are much more important than the post-disaster countermeasures. But when a big disaster happens, such unfortunate events should be used well as an important opportunity to solve the potential problems of the affected area. With high disaster imagination capacity, by combining 3 pre-disaster countermeasures and 4 post-disaster countermeasures, we can implement disaster safer society. I thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to extend a special thanks again to our RTI partners and collaborators who have been leading on this World Bank financed work in Bangladesh, where this methodology and a lot of the videos and content that you've seen have been used in the program implementation. So we want to thank them for their leadership as well. As we move into the next segment, we've finished our sort of high-level framing remarks. And now we're moving into the actual model itself, the Meguro-Maki model that we're going to be working through in our breakout sessions. So we'll be viewing, again, a short video now to give us a sense of direction of what this tool is and how we'll be using it in the breakout sessions. Again, earbuds would be great for the sound, the audio quality. And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleagues. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Sabine Kaas, the Director of International Programs with Miyamoto International, and I also do research work with Meguro Sensei at the University of Tokyo. The disaster countermeasures that Dr. Meguro mentioned are central to preparing and recovering from disaster, but they must be informed by disaster imagination. Quite simply put, if you can't imagine it or articulate it, how can you prepare for it? At Miyamoto, we work with disaster authorities and governments to develop scenario planning tools and risk maps to better understand what kind of damage and loss of life is probable in the event of an earthquake. But it is also important for everyone to imagine exactly what might happen in a disaster on a personal level. And that is where the disaster imagination tool comes in. Every individual in society has disaster management responsibilities. The Meguro-Maki tool has been used to facilitate disaster imagination for communities, community members, to political decision makers, to urban search and rescue teams. It forces you to think through the minutes after disaster and truly appreciate what that looks like, so that we can ultimately create more realistic, effective countermeasures, such as community response plans. Now, how does it work? The Meguro-Maki tool is usually done in person by printing out the chart, which we're showing you here, on a long scroll of paper. And each individual fills it out using Post-it notes. Maki in Japanese means stroll. Because we are virtually, coming together today on this virtual platform, we will be doing this together online in the breakout groups. And we'll also be providing you with a link where you can download the Meguro-Maki tool. Now, where do we begin? We'll start by selecting a scenario. Imagine it is Thursday, December 4th, 2020 at 6:30 a.m. You're in your home country, which is also earthquake prone. If it is not earthquake prone, imagine it to be earthquake prone. So it is Thursday, December 4th, 2020 at 6:30 a.m. and a very high magnitude, a 7 plus magnitude, 7.8 magnitude hits your city or town. Using the Meguro Maki roll, we'll start at the top right corner of the Meguro Maki roll. We will fill in the conditions at the time of the earthquake, the date, December 4th, Thursday, the time, 6:30 a.m., the season, the weather. This is important because all disasters are not alike. Timing. You will be somewhere different if this happens at night or during the day. The outcomes of the disaster will be vastly different if it is a nighttime or a daytime event. You will also have different needs if it is winter versus summer or if the monsoon rains are happening. Every detail is important and should not be ignored. Now, working down the Meguro Maki roll, you will put your name into the straw and your position and occupation, school teacher, disaster management officer, mother, father, the different roles that you play in life. We now begin to imagine the disaster as it unfolds in time and space by moving to the columns on the Meguro Maki roll. In the first column, under your location and activity, you should start to fill in your story. Thursday, 4th of December, 6:30 a.m. Where are you? What are you likely doing? Who are you with? Continue to fill in your story for all the times indicated on the roll. What will you be doing 10 seconds after the disaster strikes? 1 hour, 4 hours, 12 hours after the disaster strikes. The role of the facilitator is to help you understand how complicated the situation is and probe you to imagine more. We will now get the chance to practice this a little in our breakout rooms. We will be randomly placing each of you into a breakout room where we will spend the next 10 minutes working through a Meguro Maki roll. We will ask one of you to please come forward to volunteer. Please note that this is a hyper-personalized disaster scenario planning exercise or imagination tool, so you will be asked to share some personal details about your home and your family if you volunteer, and we hope you do so. We will be spending 10 minutes in the breakout rooms and then look forward to reuniting here in the main session for a lively discussion. Enjoy.
Okay, are you ready? So the next step is we're going to do this. You're ready. Okay, wonderful. So we'll head into breakout rooms.
All right.
Give me just 1 second.
Sure.
Hi, everyone.
Alrighty, welcome to group number 3 with Meguro International. And really thrilled to be here. I'm co-facilitating with my colleague Maddie, who's also online here. And I hope that you all see the Meguro Maki on the shared screen. We'll be pulling that up.
Please let me know if you can see it. All good?
Wonderful. So do we have a volunteer? Yes.
Let me introduce Ginny. Ginny is our program management and leadership from our Miyamoto, Nepal office. Obviously very familiar with this work and has experienced the devastation of an earthquake firsthand. And I'm very grateful to have Ginny on the call to share her experience
Really appreciate it. So it is December 4th, 2020, an imaginary date, because I noticed that it would actually be December 3rd if it was a Thursday, but it is December 3rd. And so where are you based, if I may ask?
I am in the Dominican Republic. So
The Dominican Republic, yeah, high seismic, Dominican Republic part, right on.
The volcano has the most activity, or starts having more activity.
It's pretty realistic there, man. Okay. So you're in Puebla, right? Is that your city? Okay.
Yes,
So that's the
Puebla,
location.
Puebla.
Okay. So you're gonna be, are you gonna be at the home? I imagine 5:30 a.m.
Yes.
Okay, you're at
Downtown.
home.
Downtown Puebla.
Downtown. I see. What kind of house is it you're in?
It's a colonial building.
Wow.
I mean, an old building. Yeah.
URM, huh?
Beautiful one.
Ooh, it is a beautiful building. I can see it. I can feel it. So it's all building, unreinforced masonry structure, obviously. And who's in who are in the home? Who's there besides yourself?
Jasmine and probably a few Airbnb guests in the other apartments.
I see. I see. Okay, so that's the kind of a situation going on. You're sleeping, right? 5:30 a.m.
I'm probably having a shower.
Are you like waking up or are you going to sleep?
No, I'm another person. So that's probably what it's doing.
Okay, so here is earthquake right at the first 5:30 a.m. What is this? Magnitude 7.3. And
on the call, can you hear Ginny, or is it just?
Yes,
Joan,
I lost her as well, Elizabeth.
You lost her as well. Okay, that's unfortunate. The connection may not be very strong. Would anybody else on the call like to volunteer? Jamie or Jaime, Valerie, I see on the call. Jack, Joan. Anybody else want to give this a spin?
If you can hear me,
this
Elizabeth.
is Jack here. I think I can try to take over.
Okay.
I don't
Thank
promise
you.
I have better connection. This is in the middle of the night where I am here in Canada, but I will try to speak in an audible manner.
Thank you so much, Jack. And very sorry, Ginny, for the connection issues. And thank you for stepping in. So Jack, so you mentioned you're in Canada. We'll assume winter.
Yep.
If that's
No,
a fair.
that's fine. Half the year is winter here in Canada. So.
Right. Okay, so a little bit about your context. Where do you live? What floor are you on? Are there a lot of other buildings where you are? Is there anybody else living with you?
So I'm originally from Toronto, but I'm actually in Ottawa right now, which is moderately seismic. I'm in the downtown area. Lots of old building, very typical sort of urban environment.
And are there easy sort of access ways to get out of the building from where you are? Are you on a floor or a level, or is it just the main floor?
Well, actually, I'm in a hotel building right now, so yeah, it's pretty clear how to evacuate the building.
Okay. And I forgot to ask about your position. So would you be involved in the actual emergency response? Would you have roles and responsibilities where you are?
Not really. I'm an engineer. Actually, I'm a civil engineer. So I'll be probably working more so in the preparation aspect of things, not necessarily emergency response. But I do have family here with me. So I guess, I'll be working as part of the family response team. Right.
So then let's move on to the very early stage. So it's 6:30 a.m. winter, you're sleeping, and a 7+ plus magnitude earthquake hits, in that first sort of 10 seconds to 1 minute, you know, what would you imagine would have happened? Are there things around you that may have fallen? What would be your sort of first response as you wake up from your sleep?
Yeah, so I'll grab my wife, my kid, just make sure everybody is finding a safe spot to duck under and cover.
And do
Probably
you think,
would be under a desk.
and is there anything around you kind of non-structural that you think may have fallen?
Perhaps a pen and light, possibly sort of like paintings hung on the wall. Nothing too heavy. It's plaster ceiling. Yeah, maybe a closet might topple.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of exits, now moving into this next couple of minutes, so now you've woken up, you realize that there's a crisis playing out, you're looking for your family and friends, kind of going to cover. Are you looking for exits? Where are you now? What are you doing in those next couple of minutes once it's occurred to you that you're in the middle now of this earthquake?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we're kind of at the end of the hallway here, and the evacuation exit, if I remember correctly, is sort of towards the middle of the building. But probably, I think people are, I might hear people kind of rushing out if they don't know what they're doing, even during, the shaking, because it's pretty rare that we experience a very big earthquake here in Eastern Canada.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any kind of things that you would take with you? Do you have a go bag or, key documents that you would be grabbing at this time?
My first reaction would probably just be, making sure that me and my family are kind of safe. But I probably want to grab my laptop. But
Excellent, thank you. And at this point, if you're outside and exits have happened, would you be trying to make a phone call, for example, trying to get through to others?
Yes, probably I will, yeah.
And one of the things that may be occurring during this time is the inability to get through, either damage to the system or too many people sort of calling. So that then brings us to this kind of critical, so the initial reaction, the exiting, and now you're sort of 1 hour out. It's sort of hitting you what has happened.
Yeah.
You may be noticing people exiting the building or buildings around you with injuries. You may have suffered injuries yourself. What are you thinking and doing now? What's your sort of thought process 1 hour out?
Yeah, probably if
the police, or maybe the bodyguards of the ministers, we can communicate through them.
I see. So this is a 10 minutes point. And so you're going to the building. How was it? Did you find the governor?
No, he's at his home.
He's at home. I see.
5:30. Yeah. I mean, 5:40 something.
So you basically get into the governor's office here right now, and you're directing, sounds like you're directing the whole response structure because that's your job, right?
Yes.
I see.
And I have to inform.
I see. So you're basically making the calls. So how's the people? I mean, at all those police and urban search and rescue, especially urban search and rescue team, are they ready to deploy? 10 minutes point here now.
Yes, they're supposed to deploy on their own just because it happened. They don't need me to tell them what to do.
I see. So they're basically allowed to go out, act on it. So you're at a 15 minutes point now, or 1 hour point almost getting there. Probably you're spending 1 hour now. So what do you think at this point that the user team would be out there? But how your user team is picking the place to rescue people because the people screaming all over the places? Mm-hmm. What they do? How they choose the locations? I guess they're gonna randomly just go rescue people. I guess, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. How many people live in a city, population-wise?
I don't have the number right now.
Like 100,000 people?
How much?
100,000 people,
How
maybe?
many? Probably more.
100,000? Couple hundred thousand, maybe? Yeah, maybe
Probably
200,
more.
300. Yeah, maybe 300,000 people, maybe somewhere
Yeah.
there, maybe 500,000 maximum. So probably you're going to have a fatality of for earthquake like that, say town about 500,000 people, you probably see a fatality of probably about 3,000, 4,000 people fatality there. What's your plan now? You're at 6 hours time now. What? So you know that you're facing it, but how do you actually understand that damage is like? It's dark, 5:30 a.m. You start getting light now, after a couple hours. What would be your next step?
Probably we will see from the media or hear from the media.
Yeah.
What is happening not only in Puebla but in the municipalities around.
Yeah. So basically, through the media, you start understanding that what the situation is like.
Mm-hmm.
I see.
Yes, and then from hospitals.
In hospitals. I see. Yeah. Kelly, how much time do we have? You're on mute.
Yeah, I'm not sure. The time remaining says 0. We're getting close. It has said 0 for a few minutes though.
Well, I guess they're gonna pull us out whenever it's over.
I think I've just asked Maddie and Lucy. I don't know if you guys can see that chat, but I think we all need to rejoin that meeting.
Well, they're gonna, I think, pull us out if you either like or not. I think.
Well, that was the plan, but I think it might not be working.
Oh yeah, so we have to leave our own device. You said leave room on there.
It says, "Are people closing?" Okay, Maddie's closing it in a minute, so we're good.
All right, that's what I thought. So I don't see. I think your case is very, very interesting.
Yes,
very interesting because that your Java function of it, and you're right there.
Yeah, what happened in 2017 is that not what they didn't know what to do, and we had a big earthquake. Nothing happened in last June, and I mean it was the same. Like we know what to do, and they didn't. They just stare at each other. I'm like, come on, those. So I was on my own, trying to, have an answer.
Hi all. All right.
Okay, excellent. Well, welcome back, everybody. Of course, we wish that we had more time to be able to really go into detail. For us, in our session, we had a kind volunteer from Canada who was able to sort of talk through some of the highlights of his thought process as he would be going through. And so, maybe what we can do is invite each of the facilitators to present either the key messages on their own, or if the person who was going through the activity feels comfortable sharing their reactions, that would be very useful to the process. Jack, I don't want to put you on the spot, but we didn't get a chance to really debrief. So if you feel comfortable sharing some insights on what, even just answering the few questions and going through personal mitigation measures and thinking about how this may relate to your job and your work, we would welcome that. Again, if you don't feel comfortable sharing in a large group, I can certainly summarize some points, but Jack?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind.
Great, thank you so much. So tell us, what sort of stuck out to you in terms of personal mitigation, that you maybe hadn't thought about that occurred to you as a part of this exercise?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm actually here to visit family. So I'm actually on vacation. So probably, we're not the most well prepared. Like I have a family member living in the outskirts of town, but we don't really have a lot of, definitely don't have access to emergency kit and things like that. I would say the best case scenario is that we're able to evacuate the building and probably the city safely, or probably, get our first chance and return home, assuming that all the roads and stuff are working. But otherwise, we'll have to basically, find shelter amidst, probably a lot of chaotic things are happening inside the city. And then, if we can, try to reach, family members in the outskirts and try to settle there until, the situation sort of clears up. That's kind of the first reactions that I had.
And how, again, if you feel comfortable sharing, does it, highlight anything as it relates to your work? Now, you're a civil engineer. As you're thinking of working in the technical community or working with government officials or other disaster planners who are working, can you think about how sort of going through this and then maybe days and weeks and months after the event, sort of using that as a baseline to start the conversation on disaster management planning? Is there anything that jumps out to you from a kind of professional planning point of view?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we do, part of what we do routinely is actually help sort of these big portfolio owners prepare for earthquake from a structural aspect. And this would for sure be a conversation starter to bring people's, I mean, usually you don't need to actually tell people there's an earthquake hazard right after an earthquake. I think the challenge is to convince them that there will be earthquakes when one hasn't happened yet. But yeah, I think probably from a work perspective, there will be an influx of people wanting to inspect their buildings, if anything, like maybe repair or even replacement. So from and that's probably take years, right? Like considering if a major event like this happened close to the center of Ottawa.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jack, and really appreciate you sharing your insights. So I will invite the other facilitators to share kind of key messages coming out of their breakout rooms. What we're doing in the interest of time right now is kind of combining these ideas on lessons learned or how this could apply to work and stakeholders that we may be engaging with on the disaster management side. So we'll just sort of combine that conversation with any kind of report out plus insights or thoughts about this tool. So I will turn it over to one of my facilitator colleagues. Perhaps Kit, would you like to go?
Yeah, sure, I'd love to. So I was in team with the Ana Lucia from Puebla in Mexico. And I mean, she's actually fantastic because she is the civil protection in charge of Puebla. So it's definitely like a real time about what she gonna do step by step about the communication from governor in the first 1 minute, because she knows the cell phone will be overloaded in about a minute or two. So her first action is the communication with the governor, and governor's office or the civil protection is a 15 minutes walk. So she had to get there fast as possible, and I think it was a good one. I only say the fact is I asked one question about, okay, a whole bunch of people be buried, maybe screaming, what would you do? Her response is, no, she need to get to that civil protection first, because that's why she can save more lives out there. So that type of it's a real thinking process happening, I think that was a good one. What do you thought about Ana Lucia? You have any thoughts?
Yes, you mentioned that I will have no communications eventually, and that if we had a way to communicate, and we're in the process. If that happens like right now, we won't have a way to communicate unless we meet in person.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about that because you understand that earthquake, you understand disasters like, so you know the quick action and how to go to places. That's what you already thought about it. But you also understand that there's no communication after 1 minute. So except that radio, you may have from military, but it's pretty limited. So you have no central government connections to it. So it may be buying a couple of satellite telephones. They're actually pretty cheap nowadays. That may be helpful. What do you think?
Yes, that's good.
Excellent. So these kind of personal mitigation measures that may come up, as a result of this. Thank you so much. Sabine, over to you. We've got a couple of minutes left before the end of the session, so we'll sort of move through kind of insights that came on your side, and then I'll move to wrap up.
Yes, so excellent. So it felt a bit like speed dating. I know we only have 55 minutes with you, and so we're piloting this. But I really felt like we're starting to get into the sort of imagination, this disaster imagination, and sort of what struck me, is the sort of aspect of personal safety. And I think sort of at the end of the day, working in disaster risk management it really does boil down to the individual to take that responsibility and understand that their safety is their responsibility first and foremost, and understanding how they can be safe and how their family can be safe. And so if you sort of work from the bottom up, it creates a more resilient society ultimately. So that's sort of like the feel that I got, even though I would have loved to have more time to really delve into this and look at, hours later and maybe even days later, which is a possibility. We just sort of are piloting this. I wanted to also see if anyone from group 3 had sort of a feedback, or if our volunteer from Dominican Republic, William Yeldis, would also like to share some thoughts.
Well, thank you very much. I think that this is a very useful tool for preparedness, because help you to think ahead of what you should do in the event of an earthquake. And when you prepare and have the idea of what you have to do, it's like a muscle memory. So you will be able to execute more easily. A good tool. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I agree. I think completely. I mean, this tools definitely can be used for the civil protection of the government, people like that, which definitely at a really good one. Not only stop up at the 12 hours, but 1 week, 1 month, 6 months, 1 year, and you can see the whole flow of it, how the additions is making it. That makes a huge difference. How can prepare for it, really. But also in Japan, though, they use for the actual school children, like kindergartens. It's a really interesting. So it's a tool for pretty much everyone to really think ahead.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Wonderful. So just as we move to wrap up, again, want to thank all of my colleagues at Miyamoto International. I want to thank Professor Meguro and his team and colleagues at RTI for their support as well. And as a reminder, this was a short 55-minute session, and really the objectives were to introduce you to the tool, to get you thinking about how it works from a community level, a personal preparedness, and also some of these broader government dialogues as a starting point as well, and really emphasize the importance of personalization. Once you sort of put yourself in those shoes, different insights come in. And that's really critical. So we welcome the opportunity to be in touch. If this is of interest to you, my email's on the screen, so please feel free to contact me anytime. And finally, just a huge thank you to the World Bank and others who put together this tremendous Understanding Risk Conference. Thank you all for joining as we have been discussing it.
Yes, let me add one thing before I say goodbye. So we are definitely serious to help you. And we can facilitate a process like this really quickly over Zoom. It's no problem to basically even train the trainers for this format like that. Okay, so any organization, anyone interested, contact us. Okay, free of charge. It's really good.
That's from the CEO, so you know it's true. Okay, thank you all for joining. It begins with imagination. It begins with you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Have a good day, good evening.